Hello boys and girls. So we're going to go to the last session of the listing problems right now. Okay, so I don't know if you like the listing. So the listing problem just need you to have a little bit extra patient, and I think everybody can do these questions properly. So now let's take a look at the question number 1. So this is week 3, number 5 questions. A frog is jumping from A, B, C, the 3 lead. If the frog starts at the point A, after 4 times jumping still back to the point A, how many different ways are there? So we're going to first put an A point, B point, and C point. Okay, so I don't know how far this frog can jump, but we can put A, B, C like that, or we can put A, B, C like that. It is the same thing. So we know A, B, we can just start it with A. So it could be A to B, then B to C. So how many steps? 2 steps are there. Then we can have C to A. But unfortunately, how many times we have to try to be jumping? 4. So this is 3 times already back to A. It's not right. Okay, we have to have 4 jumping. So instead of going back to A, I'm thinking about going back to B. And then B back to A. Okay, so this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 steps. So there's a 1 way there. Do we have another one? Of course, I'm going to change different colors. So A to C, C to B, and B back to C, and C back to A, right? So it's A to C, C to B, B to C, and C to A. But do we have another way of doing that? Of course, we can do A to B, and B back to C, and A to C, and C back to A. So there, the third way is A to B, B to A, then A to C, C back to A. And on the other hand, we can do A to C, C to A, then A to B, and B back to A. So there are altogether 4 different ways. Maybe I missed something, and if you can, how about you do the same thing like me, like I did as well. Okay, so let's just move forward. This is a very naughty frog, so let's take a look at number 2. There are stickers on 3 bottles. 2 of them have wrongly labeled it. Altogether, there are 3 different ways of putting them. Let me show you why there are altogether 3 different ways, okay? So for instance, we have this one is milk bottle, and this one is Coke bottle, and the other one is water bottle. So all of them should be labeled milk, Coke, and water. But 2 of them are wrongly labeled. So that means milk could be labeled as what? Yes, as Coke or water. And Coke could be labeled as, yes, milk or water. And water could be wrongly labeled as milk or Coke. But only 2 of them are wrong. So that means, for instance, we first make water, right? Okay, and Coke is wrongly labeled as milk, and milk is wrongly labeled as Coke. So this is a 1 way. And if the other way is Coke is right, then milk is wrongly labeled as water, and water is wrongly labeled as milk. This is another way. Last but not the least is milk is right, and Coke is wrongly labeled as water, and water is wrongly labeled as Coke. So there are altogether 3 of them. So now if the question changed to 4 bottles, so let's make it Coke, water, milk, and juice. Okay, and 3 of them are wrongly labeled. Let's take a look at this one. How many different ways are there? Okay, so some student will say, okay, there are also 4 different ways because 3 bottles and 2 of them are wrongly labeled. You have 3, then 4 bottles, 3 of them are wrongly labeled. It must be 4. Let's take a look at this one. So 3 of them are wrongly labeled. So let's just say first one, Coke is rightly labeled. Okay, so that means water and milk and juice has been wrongly labeled. If you take a look at this one, water could be what? Water could be wrongly labeled as juice, and milk could wrongly labeled as water, and juice could be wrongly labeled as milk. But there's also another way of juice could be wrongly labeled as what? As milk, as water, sorry, and milk can be wrongly labeled as juice, and water can be wrongly labeled as water. Oh, sorry, no. Then there's only. So milk can be wrongly labeled as, sorry, I'm making mistakes here. So juice can be wrongly labeled as water, and milk could be wrongly labeled as juice, and water could be wrongly labeled as juice, water, and milk. Yes, I'm right. So because W, M, and N look so similar to each other. Okay, so that means when Coke is right, there are 2 ways of labeling them wrongly. So the same thing as when water is right. Okay, so that means Coke, milk, and juice has been wrongly labeled. So first of all, Coke could be wrongly labeled as milk, milk could be juice, and juice could be Coke. And again, Coke could be juice, and milk could be Coke, and juice could be milk. So there are again 2 ways of doing that. So I think you should apply to the, yes, so let's apply to the milk and juice yourself. Okay, so if you want, you can hit the pause and we can do that. Okay, so boys and girls, the pause is off. So if I have milk is right, so that means Coke, water, and juice is wrongly labeled. Okay, so Coke could be wrongly labeled as juice or water, and water could be wrongly labeled as juice or Coke, and juice could be wrongly labeled as Coke or water. So again, there are 2 of them. Last but not the least, if juice is the one only right, so Coke, water, and milk are wrongly labeled. So I know that Coke could be wrongly labeled as water or milk, and water could be wrongly labeled as Coke and milk could be wrongly labeled as water or Coke. So again, there are 2 of them. So altogether, how many of them are there? So 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. So there are 4 times 2 equals 8. 8 different ways. Okay, I hope you're going to enjoy these questions because these questions looks very complicated. So the way of learning those complicated questions is what? Is you try to stop whenever you start to feel that you're confused and trying to understand every single steps your teacher's doing, and hit the pause and redo it yourself again. So let's take a look at the last questions. So if A, B, C, D are 4 students standing in a line, okay, A is not the first one. So we know they're standing in a line, so 1, 2, 3, 4 steps. So A is not the first one, so A could be the number 2, number 3, and number 4. B cannot be the second one, so B could be the first one, third one, or the 4th one. C cannot be the 3rd one, so that means C could be the first one, second one, or the last one, and D cannot be the 4th one, so that means D cannot be the last one. So if D cannot be the last one, so D could be here, here, and here. Okay, so the question is, how many different standing ways are there? This question is super duper hard, okay? So if you feel like this question is very hard for you, we don't really require you to understand these questions by now, because later on you will having more strategy to do that. Okay, so A, B, C, D, 4 students are there. So A could be when A is on the second. We're going to put A as a second. Okay, so let's see how many different options are there. So when A is here, so I can put B. So B, A, D, C, right? So the first one, because B could be the first one, and D could be here, and C could be the last. And we can also have what? C, A, B, oh, sorry, C, A, D, B, right? I'm not going to move AD because I'm just putting AD here, but by just switching C and D. Okay, so in the next one, I'm going to move D because D can be the second, or I can put D can be the second, D, but A is on the second, so D cannot be the second, so let's put D first. So because D is first, A is the second is determined, the third place must be whom? Must be B because C cannot showing for the third one. So C cannot be the third one, so that's why it's D, A, B, C. Okay, because DA, when DA is determined, nothing can be changed because C cannot be the third one. So when A is on the second, so there's BADC, and can we say BACD? No, because C and D cannot be switched. So ABCD is like that. Okay, so let's take a look at this one. When A is on the third. Okay, so you can see who can be the first. I just put B the first, and D the second, and A, C. Why can't I put C here? Of course I can put C on the second, but if C is on the second, D cannot be the last. Okay, so again, I'm going to still put A here. So which number I'm going to put the first? Yes, C. So if C is the first, who is the next? Okay, I can put D here. The D cannot be the last, so D must be here because number 3 is being taken already by A, so the last one is B. Last but not the least is B. If D is the first, A is the third, who is the second? Of course C, because B cannot be C, so B, C, A, B. Okay, so there are 3 of them as well, so let's take a look at 1, 2, 3, 4. A is the last. So if A is the last, who can be the first? I just put B at the first. A is the last. So C cannot be the third, so D must be the third and C here. Okay, so I'm going to put the C the first, A as the last. So B cannot be the second, B has to be the third, so A, B, C, D, C, D, B, A. Last but not the least is D is here, A is the last. So who can be the second? C, because D cannot be the second. B cannot be the second, so it's B, C, B, A, D, C, B, A. Okay, so altogether there are 9 different ways. Okay, so that's why, see, I always just stick with one number, and the rest of them is kind of pun to it. Okay, again, I said this question is super duper hard. If you don't know how to do it, it's totally fine because we're going to come back and having more listing method. Okay, so boys and girls, I hope you enjoyed today's class and we're going to see each other next week. Bye-bye.